the people reported that so far they have not yet seen any money. We expect the Ministry of Finance to release the 30 billion which was budgeted for before the end of this financial year. Why is the government doing this? The government expects that when these people receive money, their livelihoods will improve, and that some of this money can be invested and thereby improving food security, also improving health, improving education. On page 7, we talk about another manifesto commitment. This one is general, improving access to justice. I think it will be better understood when we are now talking about what the judiciary is doing. You are aware that we are still tenants on Bowman House, Parliament Avenue, but there is ongoing construction of JLO's house. JLO's means Justice, Law and Order Sector. This house is going to cost at least 213.3 billion. And the JLO's house, it is actually not one house. There are many, at least 2 buildings. It is going to house the following institutions: the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. There will be a High Court. There will be Ministry of Internal Affairs. There will be Uganda Registration Services Bureau. I think this one will not be there because they have their own building in Kololo now as part of the complex where Investment Authority also sits, the one-stop center. We shall also have the Law Reform Commission and the Law Council. The Law Council is the body which regulates the conduct and professional ethics among lawyers. There will also be the Center for Arbitration and Dispute Resolution. There will be a number of other institutions. We still believe that by 2025, this building should be complete, by the end of 2025. This building is important for us because it will improve institutional coordination, since we shall be in the same building, and also the working environment for the staff will be a lot better. But more importantly, you know that these institutions I've mentioned pay a total of 30 billion in rent to private property owners. So when JLO's house is completed, we shall be saving all this money and investing it elsewhere. Still under improvement of access to justice, there are achievements that I wish to note. There are now 7 fully operational regional offices of the Ministry of Justice: Arua, Fort Portal, Gulu, Mbale, Barara, Moroto, and Soroti. This is not enough. We need to extend access to justice by having more regional offices. We note 2 general challenges on page 9. The funding for cattle compensation is inadequate. We need a minimum of 200 billion upfront for those who lost their cattle to take us seriously. This is the message we got when we appeared before the parliamentary committee. The other challenge we have is, how do we deal with children, minors, who are claimants? These are the planned interventions for this financial year. Number 1, to pay those who are verified and validated in the 3 sub-regions of Acholi, Lango, and Teso. We need 80 billion. This is what has been allocated in the next financial year. And then, number 2, we expect to complete the first phase of JLO's house. 20 billion has been allocated towards this project. But we need an additional 21 billion. The irony is that we are spending 30 billion paying rent, and we have a shortage this financial year of 21 billion. We move on to page 11 to discuss another manifesto commitment. Those who have the manifesto, this is page 248. The commitment is to instill zero tolerance to corruption in the judicial system by introducing systems and periodic performance monitoring of judicial officers. Later, the Secretary to the Judiciary will say more about this, how they have front-loaded some approaches to let the judges and magistrates know that they are being watched. I have the following to report. In the financial years 2021-2022 and 2022-2023, 64 disciplinary cases against judicial officers were handled. For you journalists, you are entitled to get the details of this information if you are interested under the Freedom of Information Act. 25 inspections were carried out in magisterial areas and a special inspection for Chief Magistrate's Court in Jinja. This is the Judicial Service Commission. The Judicial Service Commission is the one that interviews all judicial officers and generally supervises their work. It is a specialized agency under the Constitution. The Judicial Service Commission also carried out 28 talk shows on anti-corruption awareness. They conducted 4 regional sensitization workshops on anti-corruption mechanism in judicial systems. Just for noting by the Director of Monitoring of the Manifesto, there are cases where judges are actually wrongly accused of being corrupt. They are actual corrupt judicial officers, but there are also cases where the corruption is facilitated by their own staff without their knowing. I learned of a case where a clerk saw a draft judgment on the desk of the judge, and it was clear who was going to win the case. The clerk then contacted the lawyer of the prospective winner of the case, telling the lawyer to tell that party to the case that there was an opportunity to talk to the judge so that that client wins, provided he parts with some money. So the clerk received the money and pocketed it. The judge was totally unaware. On the day of judgment, this client dressed up very smartly, the way you see me here, already knowing the results of the judgment, according to the clerk, was expecting to win. But unknown to all of them, the judge had found an authority in the law books which made him change his mind. So he changed his judgment and the other party that was expecting to win now lost. When he read the judgment and this person who had paid money lost, he complained to his lawyer and told him, we have given the judge money, how can we lose? As lawyers, we are allowed to enter judges' chambers because we are officers of court also. So this lawyer asked for a private meeting with the judge, and he told the judge, you know, you got something. How come you have not kept your part of the bargain? And the judge said, believe me, I have not received any money. I have not requested for any money, but let me investigate. Of course, courts have CCTVs, so they were able to monitor, and they discovered what had happened. So there are cases like those. So I would like to discourage the public from blanket accusation of judges. We have some bad eggs. And by the way, apart from the Judicial Service Commission, the cabinet can also pass a resolution so that a judge can be investigated by the Judicial Service Commission. Our laws actually are very good. Under the laws passed in 2020 concerning the judiciary, if there is enough evidence against a judge or judges or any judicial officers, the cabinet can actually, by resolution, refer the matter. So we don't have to wait for Judicial Service Commission to act. We can also move politically, but eventually it will end up with the Judicial Service Commission. And I think we are going to have to take those kind of approaches, where if we have some notorious judicial officers, we will compile the basic evidence, take it to cabinet, and then cabinet will decide whether to refer the matter for disciplinary proceedings or not, based on evidence. So citizens, you are not totally helpless. Your political leaders can also take an initiative to ensure that judicial officers who are notoriously corrupt or even incompetent, by the way, you can be removed not just for corruption, also incompetence. If you're a judge and you are not reading judgments, there are so many cases on, you are always adjourning. Definitely, it is important for the Ugandan state to demand accountability. So citizens, you are not totally helpless. Let's go to page 12, which is still under Judicial Service Commission. I wish to announce here that in order to fulfill this manifesto commitment, the Judicial Service Commission is going to recruit more judicial officers to fill vacant positions. This commitment is on page 249 of the manifesto. So in the financial years 2021-22 and 2022-23, 337 judicial officers were recruited. 337. The breakdown is as follows: 9 Supreme Court judges, 27 High Court judges, 6 registrars, 19 deputy registrars, the details are on the screen, 60 chief magistrates, 20 grade 1 magistrates, 10 principal magistrate grade 1, 30 senior magistrate grade 1, and 144 magistrate grade 1. The reason why the magistrates are many, because those are the areas where most people take their cases. The other courts usually exercise also appellate jurisdiction. Still under Judicial Service Commission, The Judicial Service Commission, in line with the manifesto, on page 247, made a commitment to fight corruption and defeat it by strengthening investigative and prosecution machinery so that corruption cases are thoroughly probed, tried, and put before court of adjudication. These safeguards are important because our Constitution requires due process. Even if the Cabinet were to make a resolution that a judicial officer should be subjected to disciplinary proceedings and hearings, it is the Judicial Service Commission that conducts that hearing. This protects judicial officers against politically motivated witch hunting. So, I wish to report as follows. The Judicial Service Commission approved the investigation guide and prosecution manual. I encourage the media to look for this manual so that you know what happens. Because sometimes judicial officers are subjected to these hearings, but for you only report the outcome. You don't report the process. Processes and outcomes are tied together. 22 sensitization sessions and needs assessments were held by the Judicial Service Commission targeting support staff. The Judicial Service Commission in the last 2 years received 242 complaints, and of these, 102 were investigated. The Judicial Service Commission, also in line with the Nrm Manifesto commitment on page 252, which is to strengthen juvenile justice system, has customized copies of brochures on children and law, domestic violence, and sexual violence. This is part of the general education of the public. Director, let me put a footnote here. You recently heard of the cases of suspects from Karamoja who were pictured in the media looking emaciated. I want to state here that there's a bit of a conflict here because some of these facilities are under the Ministry of Gender, Labor, and Social Development. They are actually not under the Ministry of Justice. We don't supervise them. But though we haven't written it here, let me assure citizens that under our laws, we have people who are known as justices of the peace. These are respectable citizens who are given power by the law to enter any place of detention to see whatever is happening there. So we want to pledge here that at the Ministry of Justice, we shall ensure that we have more justices of the peace. And these people can go anywhere, whether it is a safe house, we hear of safe houses, whether it is a military detention facility, whether it is a police station, whether it is a government prison. Justices of the peace are supposed to have access because all citizens are entitled to be treated according to the law. So that is something we did not include in this write-up, but is one way of citizens monitoring what is happening. I think if justices of the peace had visited the remand home for children in Gulu, we wouldn't have ended up with that kind of sad situation, which was extremely embarrassing. The Judicial Service Commission has two challenges which we have noted here. Number one is, of course, inadequate resources. And then number two, Judicial Service Commission does not pay very well, so they don't attract some of the best people. So if you are going to attract the best legal professionals to be your staff, you must pay well. I want to state 3 planned interventions. The first one is continuous recruitment. Incidentally, the plan is to recruit eventually up to 151 judges of the High Court. The plan is also to ensure that every constituency has a magistrate grade 1. So access to justice is going to improve immensely. The Chief Justice is committed to deliver that. the Secretary of the Judiciary will elaborate more. The planned intervention, too, is that the Judicial Service Commission is open to receiving complaints. I think I would suggest, and the Secretary of the Judiciary can comment, whether we should not automate this, have an online complaint system. There are also those who, out of fear, don't want to be seen taking a file. They want to remain anonymous. I think online complaints may be better. In the coming financial year, the Judicial Service Commission will also operationalize Masaka and Barara offices. On page 17, this is about Electoral Commission. The commitment in the Nrm Manifesto is to continue consolidating and deepening democracy. The way we understand it at the Ministry of Justice is that the government is responsive to citizens. Most people think democracy is just about election, but what's the point of electing people who afterwards ignore you, and then they accumulate enough resources to come and bribe you to keep them in offices? So, consolidating and deepening democracy has various ways, but this is what the Electoral Commission has to report. There have been successful by-elections following the presidential and general parliamentary elections. All the vacancies have been filled. There are a few that are still going for elections in Bukedea, and recently, following the tragic killing of our colleague minister, there will be a by-election in Oyam North. Last week, I signed the statutory instrument declaring the cut-off dates for change of polling station. It is already been gazetted, I believe. So those who want to become registered voters in Oyam North have a small window to do that. Number two, the Electoral Commission has verified and confirmed administrative units across the country. This is important because it links up with the parish development model. People need to know these units. Number three, the Electoral Commission continues to produce voter education materials, and they undertake voter education outreach programs. There have been activities under the constitutional body known as National Consultative Forum, and also activities targeting political parties. Number five, the Electoral Commission was involved as a party in 188 election petitions, and out of those, 5 seats were declared vacant and by-elections were held. There was also a case challenging the outcome of the presidential election, but that one was withdrawn. The Electoral Commission, they have not put it here, but now they have a temporary home because UNRWA wants to construct a flyover along Ginger Road. So we recently went and officially opened their new home, where they are tenants of the National Housing and Construction Corporation. It is expected that in the next few years, maybe 2 to 3 years, they will start constructing their own new home in Luboa on a 10-acre piece of land. That information is already in the public. The Electoral Commission has recorded 7 challenges, which are there on the screen on page 18. The commercialization of politics. You all know what I'm talking about, where votes go to the highest bidder. 2, late enactment of electoral laws. Now, that one, the government has to take full responsibility. That is now our failure. If we come to enact laws at the last minute, definitely we are letting down the Electoral Commission. They also have the challenge of negative public perception by some stakeholders due to misinformation about the Electoral Commission. Of course, those who win elections don't complain, but those who lose elections always complain. It doesn't matter who, and it doesn't matter what sort of election. That's why you have independent MPs, because it simply means they were not satisfied with the processes within their own parties. Number 4 is election violence. The last election had some serious cases of violence which tainted the image not only of the Electoral Commission, but even of the government and security forces. So election violence has been recorded as a challenge by the Electoral Commission. You should know that the Electoral Commission does not have its own army, does not have its own police. So this is an indirect appeal for Ugandans to reduce violence. Number 5, underfunding of the Electoral Commission budget. You know, for instance, that the term of office of women councils have expired, but because of lack of money, they have not been elected. Number 6, they complain of a supercharged electoral environment based on what they call a do-or-die stance of candidates, where candidates go to elections swearing that either they win or there will be chaos. So this is a challenge of the environment. And then finally, courts take too long to resolve cases. The planned interventions by the Electoral Commission are 10. The first, demarcation of parliamentary constituencies and local government areas. The second, to reorganize polling stations. The third, construction of the EC headquarters and also regional and district offices and storage facilities. Number 4, to facilitate special interest groups to participate in the electoral processes. These include workers, persons with disability, youth and older persons. And then number 5, to enact laws early. I wish to state here, for noting by the Directorate on the Manifesto implementation, that we are already working very hard to ensure that some of the amendments, including to do with the Constitution, are already under discussion. Number 6, capacity building. Number 7, inclusive participation of citizens. And general update, display and processing of voter register for polling. Increasing civic education. Now, this is an area where the Electoral Commission is totally under-facilitated. So we are now depending on civil society organizations to carry out civic education. And then finally, to conduct elections of administrative units, which are LC1, LC2, women councils, and committees. From the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, these are captured under page 243 of the manifesto. And the commitment in the manifesto is to roll out the computerized prosecution case management system, abbreviated as PROCAMIS. That's on page 21 of the slides. Now, the system is accessible in 34 stations. We have 42 stations, so there's still a gap of 8. 8 stations don't have this system. The Office of the DPP reports the following progress. There is a conviction rate of 86%. That means out of 100 suspects who are produced in court for trial, 86 are convicted. The Office of the DPP in financial year 2020-2021 recovered funds totaling 8.1 billion, and in 2021-2022 they recovered 8.6. 3, the Office of the DPP has persuaded court to impose administrative sanctions on officials convicted with corruption cases. All of them are now barred from holding public office for 10 years. This is in line with Section 46 of the Anti-Corruption Act. Number 4, new offices have been constructed in the following regions: Soroti, Mbale, Mbarara, Jinja, and Fort Portal. State attorneys' offices have been constructed in the 5 districts of Palisa and Kira municipality, Aleptong, Kamwenge, and Amuria. Aleptong is spelled with a B. And finally, there were 2 offices in Serere and Katakwi that had the resident state prosecutor status. They have been elevated to the level of resident state attorney. The 5 challenges that are stated by the Office of the DPP are inadequate funding, inconsistencies in the law. 3, the Office of the DPP is totally absent in 54 districts. So, in other words, Office of the DPP is only there in 40% of the country. And this explains why sometimes suspects spend long in detention, because files are not cleared in advance. And number 4, there is understaffing. The gap is 60%. And of course, insecurity. Prosecutors are targeted by criminal gangs. You all know the tragic killing of Joan Kagezi, who was prosecuting cases of terrorism. This, I think, will be for the attention of the security agencies. The Office of DPP has put on record 4 planned interventions to roll out computerized prosecution case management information system in 12 stations, to increase its focus on prosecuting corruption, and then to open new offices this coming financial year in Kibuku and Kakumiro. And number 4, continue fighting case backlog. Uganda Law Reform Commission. The Uganda Law Reform Commission is a technical arm of government. It is a constitutional body. Its role contributes to the manifesto commitment to improve access to justice. So the law reform has inherent powers to initiate revisions of laws. They undertook the process of reviewing 4 Acts of Parliament: Industrial Licensing Act, Animal Prevention of Cruelty Act, Warehouse Receipt System Act, Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act. These laws are very important because the musicians have been complaining that they are exploited. So these reviews will now take into account the concerns of protecting of intellectual property of our artists. The Warehouse Receipt System Act is important for the parish development model because since small farmers and peasants don't have capacity to store what they harvest, they would then take it to a centrally located storage facility and get receipts. That way they are sure that their crops are safe from pests, and also they will be monitoring prices, and they sell when they can and when they want. So these laws are very important. On page 26 of the slides is Uganda Registration Services Bureau. There are achievements that have been recorded. They have improved business registration. The details are there. They also register trademarks. We still notice that foreigners are more vigilant in registering trademarks than Ugandans. For instance, 4,224 trademarks are Ugandan, and yet 5,758 are foreign. The URSB also has enhanced access to credit because now you can secure your loan through movable property. Those days only land was recognized, but Parliament passed a law. So URSB now has what they call the movable property registry. You can have your phone registered, your car registered, and any other thing. If you have an expensive watch, you can also use it to secure a loan. URSB has also increased its revenue tremendously. In the last, from 2021 to March this year, URSB has collected a total of 150.27 billion. Revenue collection has therefore improved tremendously, and I think it will continue to improve. There are other achievements. 2 new regional offices have been established at Masaka and Hoima. So the total regional offices of URSB are now 6. Of course, there are a number of service centers downtown. If you want to register business, for instance, near the Sikh temple, there is a service center. I think there are other centers around Kiseka Market. These are to ensure that these services are nearer to the business community. URSB has also established 32 technology and innovation support centers in higher institutions of learning: Makerere, Muni, Kabale, Mbarara. Now, these were intended to stimulate innovation by facilitating access to technology information so that citizens can exploit these opportunities. And Law Development Center. This is in line with page 243, implementation of the National Transitional Justice Policy. This should actually stand alone because it is cross-cutting. It is part of the process of national reconciliation. This is found in page 243 of the manifesto. Law Development Center has a legal aid clinic and continues to offer legal services to the indigent. They also provide legal training to police stations, prisons, schools, and communities. They also use alternative dispute resolution to resolve cases. This is through legal aid. The role of LDC is education, legal education. They have certificate courses, they have diploma courses, which are undergraduate and also postgraduate. They have not noted here, but they now have other branches. Apparently, everybody wants to be a lawyer in Uganda. So we have so many lawyers that need this education. So now there's an office in Mbarara, a school of LDC. There's also another one in Lira. I think there's supposed to be a third one in Mbale. And last but not least, we have got the Uganda Human Rights Commission. After here, I will be heading to launch the report of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. These reports are important because they are really a mirror of the extent to which we are complying with the Constitution. The Uganda Human Rights Commission reports the following. They have monitored and inspected detention facilities. They have observed notable improvements in the conditions of inmates. I have also ever been an inmate, so I also have my own testimony about this. I think you need to go to the details to get the specifics. This appears to be too general. I don't think all the prisons are the same. For instance, Nakasongola is far better than Luzira, because in Nakasongola you can have only 4 people in one room, whereas in Luzira we were almost 50 in one small room. As they say, the devil is in the details. There is no space to put all the details on the screen there. Human rights committees have been established. Our Uganda Human Rights Commission has consistently been voted the best national human rights institution in Africa. It has been accredited with an A status by the Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institutions. Human Rights Commission continues to train security agencies on issues of human rights, and they have developed human rights training manuals for UPDF and police. Now, to support the work of Uganda Human Rights Commission, everybody has got to play a part. The challenges include inadequate funding, high case backlog, especially at investigations and tribunal levels. Let me put a footnote here for noting by the Directorate of the Manifesto. We have got laws like the Anti-Torture Act. There are forms that are there for anybody who has been tortured to fill. But the capacity to investigate these cases is low. So we really need more resources to investigate. Number 3 is limited staff structure. And number 4, the law requires the Commission to have offices at district and other administrative levels. But to date, the Uganda Human Rights Commission has only 12 offices and 10 field offices at sub-regional level. So basically, in the whole of Uganda, you can only contact Human Rights Commission in 22 places. The plans for the next financial year include the conclusion of the development of Uganda National Human Rights Action Plan. Parliament has demanded this, and we are working hard to ensure that is ready. To conclude the process of the approval of the National Civic Education Policy, so that citizens know how to interact with government. And then number 3, to popularize the Bill of Rights, to intensify human rights and civic values awareness, sensitization, education, and training. Because citizens have rights, they also have duties. So that is from us and the allied institutions. I'm going to be very brief on the one of the judiciary. I'll just introduce it because I want the Secretary of the Judiciary to come and give you the flesh in person. I want the Directorate on the Manifesto Monitoring and Implementation to know that there seems to be a new good chemistry between the judiciary and the executive branch these days. I have noticed it. I've noticed, for instance, that the president does not miss any event where the judiciary invites him. I've noticed that he has also doubled the budget of the judiciary. I've also noticed that they have found a mechanism of resolving quarrels. Of course, the judiciary, it is normal for the judiciary to quarrel with the executive branch. After all, they are like the traffic officers. There's nobody who has never been stopped by a traffic officer. I consider myself one of the best drivers, but I've been stopped so many times, sometimes for nothing. So the judiciary does that. The difference is that the disagreements are being resolved in a mature manner. Let me give you one example, which the Chief Justice has often talked about. When there were these Bijambia killings in Masaka, a frustrated president of the Republic of Uganda made a public pronouncement that judges are now collaborating with criminals, giving them bail to murderers. The Chief Justice is on record telling the President in a closed meeting that, Mr. President, the Constitution you signed talks about presumption of innocence. So who are you to start calling anybody a criminal or a murderer? In fact, even judges don't judge people guilty, by the way. They always say, we have found a person not guilty. They don't say innocent. It is a very careful phraseology. It means the case hasn't been proved. Sometimes the cases are proved afterwards. There was another case of tension when the president was addressing the judges, and he also said, why do you give bail to those who have committed these horrible offenses? So the judiciary is committed to applying the law as it is, because laws are written. It is not an opinion of anyone. The laws of Uganda are not the opinion of anybody. It is only the interpretation which is an opinion, but the law is in black and white. I'm very pleased to report that the standoff over bail was resolved when the executive branch led by the president and the judiciary, I understand there was a high-powered delegation led by the Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, Principal Judge, Secretary of Judiciary, Chief Registrar, and they told the president that you don't have to touch the Constitution. After all, the president's interest was that victims of crime should be heard before bail is granted. So the judiciary has sorted that out through directions issued by the Chief Justice under the law. These three organs of the state, parliament, judiciary, and the executive, are co-equal. In other words, they are supposed to check each other and balance each other. But they are not supposed to be isolated. They are supposed to be operating in an atmosphere of harmony. So I thought I should note that to encourage citizens. Of course, let me now say this. This is not in any written document. This is now the opinion of the minister. Really, when you start drawing cartoons of judges in yellow gowns, you are discrediting the judicial branch. Who does not know that in America, most of the judges have their thinking, their school of thought? Most of them are conservatives. You know, for instance, that there was a long-standing decision of the Supreme Court of America called Roe versus Wade, which allowed abortion. The Supreme Court struck that ruling down. And once again, abortion is not a guaranteed right in America. But I never saw American cartoonists and journalists putting elephants on the heads of the judges, because the political symbol of the Republican Party is the elephant. Can you imagine if you... What about the other cases? Why are you looking at only election cases? These judges decide your mother's land case, they decide your uncle's criminal case, they decide all these cases. They only decide elections once in 5 years. So now, you draw Chief Justice Owindolo with a yellow gown. It is ridiculous. You are discrediting institutions. So I call for respect to our institutions. And ideological disagreements should be tackled also ideologically. For instance, we know that Justice Clarence Thomas is ultra-conservative and is on the Supreme Court of America. And he will be there until he dies, because in America, Supreme Court justice is there for life. But that is his worldview. So I call for responsible journalism. I want you to analyze our judiciary, because these are people who are the most highly qualified jurists. They have practiced law for a very long time. Some of them are scholars, others are professors. Obviously, they have their worldview. Now, tackle them intellectually. Don't debase them. Don't go to the level. It is okay to disagree. For instance, Americans, when they're criticizing Clarence Thomas, they talk about him as a conservative, that he does not care about the rights of the poor. You know, he wanted to strike down the law that gave access to insurance to the poor. Now, that is ideological. So I invite you to tackle our judiciary intellectually instead of simply abusing them, because it simply means you have no serious argument against what they are doing. If you have a serious argument, why resort to insults? Of course, there was a time the president said he wants cadres in the judiciary. Now, the word cadre is very broad. I don't know which president would not want those who think like him to be in the organs of government, if we are honest. So let us debate these things. For me, I'm not afraid of debating these things. It is about the worldview of a particular government. But the Constitution is the bedrock of this. I want you to know that these judges, their hands are also tied by the Constitution and by the laws. They have very little room for maneuver. We all have very little room for maneuver because the laws apply to all of us. So I want to call for fairness from the media to protect our judiciary. The bad eggs, let us call them by name. You cannot demonize the entire judiciary just because they have made one ruling which you don't like. In any case, I can tell you this now because it is in the public. When the NUP presidential candidate was arrested in Luka, the magistrate was afraid to grant him bail for fear that, sometimes people say, I will be misunderstood. Some people in public service have what they call fear of being misunderstood. It took the Chief Justice to assure that magistrate that you are protected. Just apply the law as you see fit, because you have the judicial oath. There was another incident where you saw that a little tension between the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice. Fortunately, it ended well when we all went and discussed openly and the little misunderstanding was cleared. It is the duty of the Chief Justice to protect the judiciary, just like it is the duty of the Speaker of Parliament to protect Parliament. And then the President has to protect everybody. In this document, which the Secretary to the Judiciary will present, you are going to receive details of how they have fulfilled the commitments, the challenges they are facing. There are additional documents which I believe the Manifesto Monitoring and Implementation Directorate should get. Dr. Bijirimana, that evaluation, was it an evaluation report? I think they need that, the one that we launched. The President came to launch it, then the strategic plan. The judiciary has become one of the most accountable institutions, I have to note, as far as I'm concerned, from what I see. There are things that need to be adjusted a bit. From the point of view of the Ministry of Justice, we want to report that we are collaborating to ensure justice. Let me report that within a few weeks after I assumed office, we were invited by the principal judge on behalf of the Chief Justice to discuss the cases of the suspects of unsound mind. Okay, let me put it in the language mad people, because that's the only way you'll understand. That language is not good, but let's say mad people, because I don't know how you call Abalalu. In that meeting, we were told that hundreds of Ugandans are rotting in jail, waiting what are known as ministerial orders, so that they are either taken for treatment or freed to go home or taken back to stand trial. Because of that spirit of collaboration, we were able to quickly sign instruments, and many of them who were tested and found to be really mentally unbalanced have been referred to medical facilities instead of being in jail. Now, that was an initiative of the judiciary. I was sitting comfortably behind my desk as Minister of Justice, totally unaware, and it is the judges who told us that, you are the Minister of Justice, can't you sign these instruments so that people can go back to their families? Others who are now of sound mind following treatment can be taken back to jail. There is one who has been there for 27 years. These are some of the interactions we have with the judiciary. And so I wish to report that the judiciary needs the support of everybody so that it can perform. And at the Ministry of Justice, we are having other discussions on what we call alternative dispute resolution. Already we are developing an alternative dispute resolution policy so that cases can be resolved quickly. Why is this important? It is important for the media to know that thousands of acres of Ugandan land cannot be accessed for development because there are injunctions and caveats, simply because the cases are not resolved. Those are resources that are wasted. Number two, your bail money, billions of bail money is stuck in the court system because cases are not being processed quickly enough. Where do you think the bail money goes? You pay and you keep reporting. Cases should be determined quickly so that your money comes back to you and you put it in the economy. 3, UNRA always deposits money when they are having a dispute with landowners. That money is stuck. It is not working for the economy. Instead of creating jobs for the people, the money is stuck. 3, economic activity is paralyzed when cases are not resolved. So, the Chief Justice and the entire judiciary are championing alternative dispute resolution, which is about mediation, conciliation, and arbitration. Arbitration is faster. It's faster than the drama that we have in courts. It also has a measure of confidentiality, because unlike the courts where you people will come with your cameras forcing people to resort to drama, in arbitration they are going to be closed in a small room because the dispute is between them anyway. You, the media, what business of yours is a dispute between UNRA and a road construction company? But if it is in the court, you are going to be there, and then you have a scary headline: UNRA in trouble over compensation claims. Through arbitration, these people will sit, and the arbitrator will give an award, and the matter will be resolved. So in June this year, end of June, we are going to be having a summit on alternative dispute resolution, because we want citizens to agree as quickly as possible. It is not only politicians who disagree. Even business people disagree. But disagreement should be resolved by talking to each other. So, Dr. Pius Bigirimana, I want to take this chance to invite you. I've already introduced your document in line with my mandate. Now come and give the meat to the people. I'll still be around for some time so that I can answer some questions. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Honorable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, and my colleague, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the Nrm Manifesto. I can see also elders seated here, Honorable Kamuntu, and the media. First of all, Honorable Minister, let me make 3 statements before I go to the presentation. My colleague was calling me Permanent Secretary of Judicial Service Commission, sorry, the Director, Judicial Service Commission. I want to correct, for purposes of informing the public, that I am Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Judiciary. Judiciary is one arm of government, besides the executive and legislature. That Parliament makes laws, and the executive implements these laws and also develops policies. In the course of implementation, disputes can arise. Now, judiciary is the custodian of these laws, is the one which interprets and adjudicates. So I am a permanent secretary to the judiciary, one of the arms of government. I'm not in the executive, so to say. I hope that's very clear. Second, Honorable Minister, you talked about the president getting attracted to judiciary. I think he has very good reasons why. Because there have been a number of developments that makes him get attracted, and prominent among them is the delivery, results. You have heard about the recruitment that is going on, a little more of the judicial officers recruited, case backlog reduction. You have talked about alternative dispute resolutions. You have seen court construction, prominent, the appellate courts, and so on and so forth. So he's seeing a lot of positive developments in judiciary. I think maybe that's why he's attracted. And he has declared that he's going to support us, both in terms of finances, but also to continue interacting with us so that we can deliver the required services to the people of Uganda. Honorable Minister, the third is to tell the public that as a result arising from the administration of the Judiciary Act, judiciary was strengthened, and the efficiency and effectiveness that is being seen can be attributed largely on the administration of the Judiciary Act. It made the judiciary a little more independent, and the independence to the extent of executing its mandate without influence, but interdependent with other arms of government, because we have got a common denominator. We have one army, you cannot say judiciary, we have its own army. We have one treasury, we have one police, we have got foreign policy. So, to that extent, we are interdependent, but we are independent because judicial officers are supposed to take decisions without fear or favor and without any influence. Having said that, Honorable Minister, I would like to inform the public that the manifesto, there are 5 commitments, and I want to request those with the slides to go to slide number 1, which is introducing the subject. My presentation is going to be very brief. Okay. The 2021-2026 manifesto, there are 5 commitments which judiciary was supposed to undertake. And they are as follows. 1, exploiting, that we are supposed to exploit the process for remote online adjudication of cases drawing from the COVID-19 lessons. That was commitment number 1. Commitment number 2 was the use of ICT to minimize human-to-human contact in the delivery of services so as to reduce corruption. Commitment number 3 was to instill zero tolerance for corruption in the judiciary system by introducing systems and periodic monitoring of judicial officers. Commitment number 4 was to recruit more judicial and other officers to fill the establishment positions in the judiciary. And commitment number 5 was to uphold the Administration of Judiciary Act 2020, which serves to provide for the efficient and effective administration of the judiciary, strengthen the independence of the judiciary, and provide for retirement benefits of the judicial officers, and other officers. That's on the part of the manifesto. But there was also a directive, Directive 17, under the Presidential Strategic Guidelines, and directives issued by His Excellency the President on 23rd June 2016. And read as follows: investments cannot flow in a country that has got a weaker or corrupt judiciary. Therefore, the government should work with the Chief Justice to gradually and affordably improve the working conditions of the judiciary, that is to say salaries, institutional houses, offices, cars. Through inspection and intelligence, however, corruption must be eliminated from the judiciary. It is shameful that the judiciary contains corrupt elements that take bribes in order to distort the deciding of cases. It must be stopped. That was a directive. Honorable Minister, I want to report on the 5 commitments as follows. 1, to answer to the issue of remote online adjudication, judiciary introduced video conferencing facilities in a bid to embrace online hearing of cases and enhance capacity of courts to reduce case backlog. The judiciary installed video conferencing systems in the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, High Court at Kampala, Commercial Division, and 11 High Courts circuits of Mbarara, Arua, Masindi, Masaka, Jinja, Soroti, Lira, Fort Portal, Kabale, Mubende, and Mbare. And then also Buganda Road Court, Magistrates Court. And during this financial year, the judiciary is installing 2 video conferencing systems at Court of Appeal and High Court divisions. So our estimation is that the remaining High Court circuits, Honorable Minister, within the next year, we shall have finished. So we shall have delivered 100% before 2026. We shall have delivered. Secondly, court recording and transcription systems have been put in place, and we have got 9 sets, 4 at the High Court Division, that is the Division of Lands, Civil Division, Criminal and Family. Rukunjiri and Ruwero High Courts have also been considered. And 3, we have also procured and installed 47 digital voice recorders for chambers hearing in courts operating under ECMIS. In the financial year 2022-2023, the judiciary has installed additional 4 court recordings and transcription systems for the 4 new High Court circuits, that is Tororo, Moroto, Hoima, and Iganga. and judicially procured computers and laptops for judicial officers as working tools. So the proportion has increased from 52% to 67%. And we hope by next year we shall have gone to more than 80% because there is procurement going on. We have expanded internet infrastructure in courts from 34 to 43 coverage across the country. And we hope, as we continue to work with the NITA, we shall reach most of the circuits. We have increased access to online digital record and research database for judicial officers, such as Nexus, from 462 to 684 users. This is a system that is used by the judicial officers to do research so that they can have a reliable source of information for decision making. So, and as far as that commitment is concerned, we are doing very well. I can evaluate myself like that. We are doing very well. If you don't want to evaluate us well, it's up to you. But for us, we have done very well. Now, commitment number 2, use of ICT to minimize human-to-human contact in the delivery of services so as to reduce corruption. This is on page 83 of the abridged version. Honorable Minister, electronic court case management information system went live on 1st March 2022. What is this electronic court case management information service? This is a system that we have introduced to make sure that those who have got cases file online in the comfort of your sitting room. Even in an airplane, if there is Wi-Fi, you can file. Even at night, any time of the day or of the night, you can file wherever you are. Even on your phone, you file. You even pay online. And this system takes you up to the end, the whole life of the case up to the end. Even to know which judge is handling which case, you can check online. You don't have to go to the office. So that is helping us to minimize corruption, because it is through that physical delivery of files that you find court clerks, that you find some judicial officers are interacting with the court users and end up asking for bribes. So we are trying to make it very unattractive. So on that one, we have started with the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, 3 High Court divisions, that is Land, Civil, Commercial, and Corruption Court, Ruero High Court, Mengo, Chief Magistrate Court. And the achievements is that the average case filing rate has increased at a rate of 2.8% in the courts which are having ECMIS. Non-tax revenue has increased from 5 billion to 7 billion. Increase of e-payment methods for court fees from 4,421 users to 5,567. This is a 25% increase when we started. So you can imagine if we roll out to other courts, what will happen? Cases will be filed very fast. We are also in the process of developing a judgment writing tool. A judgment writing tool will help judicial officers to have some uniform. It's a format. It's like a format which you use so that the judgments are written in an organized manner. So on this one also, Honorable Minister, we are not doing badly. We are going to roll out to other courts. The lessons we are learning from this first phase will inform us how to improve on the second phase. And this should be this year. Honorable Minister, commitment number 3 was to instill zero tolerance for corruption in the judicial system by introducing systems and periodic monitoring of judicial officers. I would like to inform the public that we have strengthened our inspectorate, because that is really very critical. We have strengthened the inspectorate by putting there more staff, by buying them vehicles, and we want to regionalize inspection. So we hope that with this initiative, we shall hold the people accountable. And in the last 1 year, over 102 cases have been handled by the disciplinary committee, and appropriate action has been taken. Secondly, the judiciary is developing anti-corruption strategy 2023-2030 to strengthen capacity to combat corruption. Number 3, we have the implementation of ECMIS in 8 courts, which I have talked about. The judiciary has provided uniforms to staff, especially court clerks. If you go to our courts now, the court clerks, the drivers, the process servers, all of these we have given uniform for ease of identification. There are some people have suffered. The minister told you. Somebody comes and introduces himself as a magistrate, when actually is a court clerk. And then suspecting clients end up paying money. So in order to identify who is who, we are now buying attires for the magistrates, the whole country. We have started with the chief magistrates. And we shall make sure that every judicial officer has got an attire. He sits in the chair with his or her attire on. And the drivers, the court clerks, in their uniforms, so that when you come, you know who you are dealing with. We have also introduced toll-free lines, hotlines, and for purposes of the media, let me read them for you, because you are also on the front line. You normally help us to expose these malpractices. 0800-111-900. That's one number. Then the second one is 0800-225-587. That is another number. So if you see, if you hear, if you get people who are involved in malpractice, please ring these lines. And also I can give you mine. 0772 700 201. Don't hesitate to send me a WhatsApp or even ring me to tell me. I will take appropriate action. The judiciary has also installed CCTV cameras around court premises so that we can be able to net those people who are involved in malpractice. Sometimes you find a court clerk or a judicial officer goes behind and exchanging money in the corridors and in the backyards. We shall get you. We have started commercial division, Guru, Mbarara, Mbare, Fort Portal, circuits, and registries of anti-corruption, land division, criminal division, Entebbe, Mengo, chief magistrate. This will help us to assist monitor the ongoing activities. So that is commitment number 3. Honorable Minister, commitment number 4 was to recruit more judicial and other officers to fill the establishment position in the judiciary. I'm happy to inform you that the judiciary received a total of 380 new appointments and promotions. As you had reported, they are on the screen. But we need more. Honorable Minister, if I can tell the public, we have got close to cases worth 83 trillion. 83 trillion shillings locked up in cases in the commercial division alone. Cases related to trade, cases related to insurance, cases related to banking, cases related to construction, cases related to intellectual property. These cases are there. Honorable Minister, if we got more judges in this commercial court, you would see the wonders that would happen, because we would now churn these cases out. And the money which is tied goes into the economy. And then the Ministry of Finance through the